Welcome back to Man vs. Meeple, the show where we talk about all things board game related. Today we're going to try something a little bit different, and that's because we just got done playing Uboot, which is a brand new Kickstarter from Phalanx Games. It is a 1 to 4 player simulation of a German submarine during World War II.
Yeah, and this takes the word simulation very seriously, I think.
Absolutely.
And is it U-boat or U-boot?
I think it's
U-boot, or, but you know, the boat.
The boat.
In English is, you know, if anyone's seen the famous German movie Das Boot, that means the boat, and it was about a German submarine going around doing their stalking of British merchant ships because they sunk so many, especially early on in the war.
And that was the mission we started playing tonight,
Yes.
too.
Yeah, so the whole game actually revolves around an app. And one of the players, being the first officer,
That was me.
plays that role, and they're going to be using the app to do a variety of things. That's repairing the boat, steering the boat.
A ton of different things. In fact, even when it's not my, or the first officer's actions necessarily, I'm going to be executing a lot of everyone else's
Of his orders, yeah.
Yes.
Right, because I was the captain.
Yeah. So let's talk about actually what you're doing. So as you see in the middle of the board, this is a 3D representation of a U-boat.
Yes,
and
it's fantastic.
Pretty freaking
This
cool,
is
right?
amazing.
So you're going to be moving around from 7 different sections. Each of these sections has a different name and different actions you can do within them. And at the very top, you have an observation deck. This is where the player is going to be going up there, looking through the app to try to find merchant ships, escort ships, airplanes that could possibly be zeroing in on their position.
Right, and for example, you have to have guys up there or you won't be able to even use this view here. You put into the app how many people you have on the observation deck, and that allows you to see out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's actually start talking about the roles and what you're doing within the game itself.
Yeah, so you got 4 roles. You got the captain, you got the first officer, navigator, and chief engineer. And you know, we talked about simulation earlier, and this game, these designs have really taken to make it super immersive.
Yeah.
From taking, because I've played the PC and the Mac sub simulations like, you know, Silent Service and Sub Battle and Wolfpack and some of those back in the day. This one is going to take it, you know, to another level, especially as a captain. My 2 main things are mobilizing my crew or everybody else and then giving them orders. And so when you're mobilizing, you're going to have everybody move certain people of their crew to different sections in order to do things like steer the ship, get up onto the deck and observe for ships, send a chief engineer and his crew to go make repairs and such like that. And then once you've mobilized them, then you got to give them actions.
Yeah, it should be said that each of us have a role, but each of us also have 4 crew members that we're moving around the board to do basically the various things on our role.
And they all specialize in very specific things. So not only are you, the navigator, but you have people that can serve food. Either you're very good at observation, whereas someone like myself doesn't have those same skills. Although I can do everything that everyone else does at the table, you really specialize in one different thing.
Yeah, I like that you can pitch in and help when chips are down and you need the navigator in there doing a repair.
Yeah.
You get them over there doing a repair.
The trick there, though, is that if you specialize in something, you're using one of your 3 activations, because each of these different officers or crew people can hold up to 3 different activations.
Right.
But they can get tired. So that's when you need help from other players that maybe not have those same specializations, but they activate more times to be able to do those same type of actions.
Not only that, but you not only have 4 crew members, but after sort of a crew shift or
watch change,
you're going to flip this board over, and you effectively have 4 of the same but different 4 crew members that do the same things, but they're going to have to pick up where maybe some of your other crew left off, or potentially abandon what the other crew is doing, depending on what the situation is.
That's pretty cool because, as you mentioned, there's 2 watches in the game. Each of these watches has 4 different crew members for every single one of the players. But their skills may differ on one side from the other, which requires the captain to be able to remobilize those people, or have those same people do those actions, but at lesser abilities.
Exactly.
And that's where the trick comes in with the captain, because the captain is in control of what's called the morale track. And every time you do a mobilization, and every time you do an order an action, you move up this morale track. And once you get so high, then you start moving on the track down below it. And as you move up that, you start taking cards, which are these morale cards. And like this one is Insomnia. Assign this card to a random sailor. And you'd give that to another sailor. And then the first officer who handles first aid will have to help heal that person. But what it does is it forces the captain to really, you just can't be mobilizing and throwing orders everywhere. It really makes you concentrate and think, how am I going to maximize my mobilization, move everybody where they need to be, and then do an order action so we're not going up and bringing down morale.
Yeah, and it also doubles as the game timer too. That's
Right.
one game. If it goes all the way
If it goes
to
all the way
end,
off, then it's like a mutiny and you lose your sub and it gets turned over to the Allied powers.
Yeah, so the app controls whatever the mission happens to be. And the mission that we played, you're in the Atlantic Ocean, and you're going to the western side of Great Britain to hunt down merchant ships, right? So what the app is telling you to do is to navigate courses, and you were navigating those courses for them, which is a really tricky.
Yeah, it is really tricky. It's really tricky. The navigator just gets a map, which I don't know how well it'll all show up, but it's just a grid. It's just a bunch of numbers.
With quadrants on them,
With quadrants.
basically.
And I have, just like back then, there's no GPS. We don't know exactly where we are on this map. We just know, maybe we're kind of off the coast somewhere. So you have to, actually use a protractor and measure the angle that you're wanting to move, and then give that order to the captain. The captain sends it over to the first officer, who will then actually change the course. And if you're not exactly accurate, which is what happened back then, you might end up a couple miles, or you might end up 100 miles away from where you actually wanted to be.
Yeah.
There were a couple moments where it's heading this direction, 300 degrees for 6 hours. Next thing we know, 7 hours have passed, and we're still heading in that direction. We forgot to change course.
The cool thing too is I'm getting information as the first officer, looking out the periscope once we make contact with a ship, and giving you information about its heading, its bearing, and you're using all sorts of other tools.
Yeah, there's this one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
This attack dial, which measures,
Which is very clever, by the way.
which measures a whole bunch of stuff. You measure which way your boat's headed. You measure which way, how far away their boat is from you.
Yeah, you might actually be able to crew a U-boat
Like
after playing this game.
I feel like I could navigate the ocean after.
Well, you did
after
pretty
playing
good.
with this.
Yeah.
It tells you which direction you're going. It tells you which direction the boat's going and which direction they're facing. So you know if they're going to kind of show their broadside to you, or if they're trying to turn and maybe escape. And this requires almost constant communication from the first officer back and forth, because as their bearing changes, you have these little tokens that you can use to track it on this board here.
Kind of get a feel for the direction of the
and almost
ship,
get a
where they're
real,
going.
almost get a real time display. But at the same time, I only know where they were going.
Well, like for instance, in our we found a ship that was
Yep.
very exciting.
It got closer and closer.
And we got closer and closer because we ended up behind it.
Yeah.
Well, we needed to get around it so we get perpendicular, so our
Hit a
torpedoes
broadside, right?
head on the broadside and have a better chance at attacking. And it took a lot of communication with my navigator, and then giving the orders to the first officer. We had to talk to the chief engineer, who was handling the speed, because
Yeah.
we were
And
coming
a lot
up
of
way too
repairs.
fast,
And repairs, yeah.
Yeah, you got to kind of hit
There's
the
a
brake
lot
down
of
there.
interesting things going on to make sure we got right where we needed to be.
That app will tell you what the entire mission may be. And our mission was to go hunt down some merchant ship over 4 days, right?
Right.
So we had a 4-day span of time in which we were at sea, theoretically speaking. During those 4 days, each of those days is broken into 2 shifts. You have a first watch and a second watch. What's tricky is that you could either be above water, you could be submerged, and you have to resurface every so hours, because the battery that propels you underwater has to be above water so the diesel engine will propel it. So you're trying to figure out the right times to submerge and come back up, while also managing your watch, because you don't want them to be deactivated at a very specific time or to be on the wrong side of the boat when you need another action for the second watch coming in.
It's almost not push your luck, but you definitely would find yourselves in situations where something that you typically want to do, like surface and let your batteries recharge, you're not able to do because there may be ships up there.
Yeah.
And you can do, as the navigator, there's a handful of tools at my disposal that I could use to sort of sweep the area.
Like a hydrophone.
A
and
hydrophone,
use a hydrophone.
to determine whether there's anything up there before we resurfaced, things like that.
Periscope.
The periscope. Again, all of these things are orders that you have to
Manage.
manage
Yeah.
and that affects morale. So you really can't get much wrong, because if you get something wrong, it's going to take another order to fix it. We ran into that with maneuvering the ship. We were trying to maneuver the ship so that we were either facing it or had our tail to it so that we could shoot our torpedoes. And that took a couple
Yeah, well, their ship kept moving, our ship.
Yeah, their ship's moving.
Because your ship's moving, and that's one thing that it's hard to explain or hard to really show, is we can figure out where we are and where they are, but by the time we figure that out, our ship's moving so fast that we've shot past them, now they're on the other side of us.
Well, there's a time management aspect to this, because it's so easy to get in these simulations, and we've all played them, and it's like a bum rush, get there and start shooting things. Here, it's so immersive, it really, okay, we came up really fast, we need to just kind of slow down. We could stalk. You can, that's what these subs did, they stalked for a while, because sometimes, we talked about as you're doing mobilizations and orders, I have to move up this morale track. But after the second watch, which is every 12 hours, you get to take that morale track all the way back down. So when you do that, okay, now we can do a whole lot more orders. We can get some repair done. We can stalk the ship. Now our morale track. Now let's dive back down, get our sights on that ship and go attack it.
The app itself controls the time within the game. And it's all controlled in real time. So a day could actually take 24 hours, like a full 24 hours.
Effectively, it's a little faster than real time, but a minute's going by about every couple seconds in pseudo real time. You can fast forward to it so that it's an hour ticking away about every second or two.
Yeah.
So, and that's really just going to bring you, once you've got everything under control, you can feel comfortable doing that, which is one of the cool aspects of the game, is because when it's hitting the fan, you can sort of let it slowly tick away so that you can get everything you need to get done.
Yeah.
And then once everything's good, captain says it's all clear.
Yeah.
We can set on course again, push fast forward until the next situation happens. And sometimes there won't be a situation, but you might have to correct course.
Yeah, and you kind of have to pause, every so often, you kind of get into this groove where you want to just fast forward. Oh, it's going to be an 18-hour trip. Let's just fast forward that 18 hours. But, during that time, we have to still feed our crew. We still have to kind of look for other ships because, if you speed, we only had 4 days. So if we just sped right to the end without getting any, ships killed.
The feeding the crew is also really cool because that has a direct impact on the morale, and it has an interesting mechanic here on the navigator's board.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little mini game where you have this little pyramid and you're trying to move. You have to take foods that are connected or touching each other.
Yeah.
To try to make meals and
you
the
have
better
little
meal.
Menu items,
yeah, there's a
right?
little menu that here.
You can make omelets and
you can make
sandwiches.
omelets and
And they all have
worst.
different effects on your
Yeah, and they all have
things.
different morale effects. The better the meal, the
and the app
more the
itself
morale
will
goes
actually
down.
ask from time to time, what did the crew eat today?
I mean, really, the app is the integral portion here to the game. Everything revolves around that from arming your torpedoes to reloading to fire them to, as we said, to speed up, to slow down, to do
diving,
observations, to
surfacing.
diving. Everything is controlled by that app. And the captain himself is the one who controls the crew members, but those orders are going to be plugged in every time by that first officer. It's a really unique dynamic.
Yeah, I think when you combine the app with what's going on the table, you've got this unique experience where you've got this pretty meticulous simulation sort of paired with what feels like a traditional co-op board game experience with the timing and everything like that. In a way, I've never seen that executed quite like this, for sure.
Cool. So guys, that is Uboot from Phalanx Games coming to Kickstarter right now. If you guys have any questions about the game, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and everything else that we do. And we'll catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
This episode has been brought to you in part by Raskellers, handcrafted tables for board gaming. Check them out at www.raskellers.com.